Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Roundtable. This morning it's Mr. Gaylen, Blosser, and I, Mike Stegall, along with our special guest, Representative Johnathan Newman, who represents the southern half of Darke County, and that's what we're most concerned with here. Anyway, good everyone. Oh, by the way, Alex is out. He's up north coming back, and Ty's on vacation again, which he seems to perennially be, but that's okay. Yeah. So we're all here today to talk to Mr. Newman, and Johnathan, thank you for coming in this morning.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. It's good to be with you men this morning.
Thank you.
Well, Johnathan, I've got to know you over the last probably year, and I've been impressed, and you've always been kind to me, and you're easy to talk to, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Being a representative. So why would you get involved in politics? I know you've been a pastor. What made you choose to get into politics?
Yeah, good question. People ask me that often. Well, like you said, I have been a pastor. That's been my career. We started a new church in Troy 27 years ago, and was the senior lead pastor of that church for 26 years. And so over the years, our church we believe what the Bible says. We believe that God's word applies to every area of life, and that our country needs to get back to its founding principles, which, I and our founding fathers thought came from the teachings of Christianity. And so our church has been very involved in those things over the years. And so when Issue 1 passed in 2023, putting abortion as a right into the Ohio Constitution, that felt like the final straw for me, that I felt like I had to find a way to get more involved, to do something more to protect the So protecting the unborn is my highest priority as a state legislator. And but other things, helping return our country to what we're about, our founding principles. I love our country. My top love is I love the Lord. I love the Lord God, and I love my wife. I love my family. And number 3, I love my country. And if I can use my life to make an impact on those things here in the state of Ohio for the sake of our country and our future, that's what I want to do.
God's the one who measures and weighs.
Way to go, Gaylen.
Oh, what happened there?
There are no retakes, I was told.
That's right.
Everybody's going to see that. Well, Johnathan,
But I got it shut off.
well, Johnathan, I know it's been a lot going on over in Columbus, and what made you? I know your faith was really important to you, but what goes on over at Columbus? How's your first couple years been?
Yeah, great question. People ask me very often, how's the new job going as a legislator? And several things I tell them is it's going well. There's a lot to learn. There's a lot of people to meet, a lot of new things, of course. The first thing you do when you get in over there is you tackle the budget, and it's just massive. But it's going very well. One thing I like tops is all the people you get to meet. I've met some wonderful people, and I love meeting people. I love talking to people. I love listening to people. I think it's important to hear what is going on in people's lives, in the community, and a lot of that has happened. And really, the job of a legislator is it's a public servant. It's a servant role, to hear what needs to be done and to do what's right. And I'll give you a couple examples. The very first person ever called me, even before I was elected, when I was on the ballot, the first person ever called me, his name is Jeff Morford. Jeff, if you're listening to this, thank you for that call. Jeff Morford has been concerned and working on annexation issues for years. He lives in Bethel Township, southeast Miami County. And Jeff Morford called, and his call turned into my very first bill that I introduced in the legislature to address annexation. And it's a big deal. It's very difficult, but we feel like there's some changes, some reforms that need to be made to annexation. So I like that. I like hearing what is important and needed for our community.
Good.
And I feel like I was born a doer. If something ought to be done, well, we ought to do it. Let's find the right things to do. And so this is lots of things need to be done, and so I enjoy that.
How long did it take you to find your way around the Capitol?
It takes a little bit. So I had gone over to Columbus many times to testify in committees about various things, pro-life issues, parents' rights, and public schools issues. And so I kind of knew my way around over there. I knew where to find parking. But all the other veteran legislators told me the first 6 months is just going to be finding your way to the bathroom and back. And that's a fact. I mean, there's a lot that goes on over there, navigating Capitol Square, downtown. But I've learned my way now, and I can talk on the phone with my earbud in while I'm getting to the State House now. So that's going pretty well, and I've had a lot of help. And,
Did you have your own parking space, or you had to find a place to
oh
park?
yeah, a good question. So once you're in office and sworn in, you're assigned a parking space. So mine is on the 4th level in the parking garage. You can park out of the weather, and I know where that is now. and that's in Rife Tower. So my office is on the 11th floor of Rife Tower. If any of you would like to come over for a visit, contact my office. These men have my phone number.
Yep.
I would love for you to come visit and see me in my office, or we can have a visit here. Call me and we can meet up somewhere here in the district.
I know you're in your second year, but there's been a lot.
First year.
First year. A lot
9
has
months.
happened. A lot has happened. And what do you think right now, going on in Columbus, is probably the most important bill to come up? Is there any bills that you're concerned about?
Well, yes. Several ways to answer that question. But the most important thing happening right now is addressing property taxes. We have to address property tax reform. So there isn't just one. There are 30-plus bills that have been introduced to address property tax reform. Over 30 bills. That's very important, but it's not like that's the only important thing. There are some other important things, but that's big. I mean, everybody in Ohio is paying attention to property tax right now. But if I can come back on the show another time, there are a couple other bills I want to talk about that I think are very important. There are some pro-life bills, and I just think nothing gets more important than protecting the unborn. Property tax is important, but protecting the unborn is even more important. So there are a couple of those I'd like to talk about, and then another bill addressing parental rights in schools. I think that's very important as well, so we can talk about those on another
Bills
occasion.
109 and 103. Is that the ones you're
109, okay, so property tax bills, 129
129.
and 309. Those are two bills that were just passed last week in the House addressing aspects of property taxes. So the House passed those, now they go over to the Senate. For the Senate, we hope to pass. So those are just two bills. So the property tax issue has many angles. So there isn't just one bill that's going to be passed to address what we need done for property taxes. There are many angles. And I am not the expert. We have some former county auditors in the legislature. They are the experts, and we're getting a lot of consultation from others. So we just passed those two bills, and they address different angles. And some of the pushback on those two bills is some have said, well, you guys are acting like you did something great by passing these two bills, and those bills aren't going to do anything. Well, we realize these two bills aren't going to do everything. But they are two things that need to be done, and they will impact property taxes for, they're not going to lower your tax bill right now, but they are going to address what happens next year. And so, anyway, there's a whole lot of details in this, but we are working hard to address property taxes. Let me just say this. Since we're talking about property taxes, I just want to say the most important priority that we must address when it comes to property tax is senior citizens living on a fixed income, or disabled veterans or first responders who are disabled. The jeopardy of them losing their homes because they cannot afford to pay their property taxes. We cannot let that happen. And I just want the listeners to know that that is our number one priority. We have been working on that, and I think we will get that right. But people have lived in their home, they own their home, they've lived there for years, they've worked for years, and now they're retired and they're senior citizens. And just the reality that because of these spikes in property taxes, suddenly the home they've lived in all these years, they could lose. That is just un-American, and we will not let that happen. Lord help us, we have to fix. That's number one priority, and I think we're going to get that done.
I think the thing that I hear the most about property tax, and I see this all the time and hear it, is that, well, if they do away property taxes, and then you've got all of our fire departments, local EMS and all that stuff, they all say, well, we're going to lose our funding. But I am sure that if you do some reduction to property tax, you're going to have to make up that deficit somewhere. Is that in part of these plans, or how are you gonna, reduce property taxes or whatever, and then fill that gap for the emergency?
Yeah, so several things there to address. Let's try to make sure we hit all those things. One is the revenue that we need to provide the services in our communities. I don't think anybody's saying, let's take away the money from the schools that they already have. We want to make sure that schools, fire, other services are funded. What we're addressing is these unexpected spikes, the unexpected increases, the unvoted increases in property taxes that we've seen over the last several years. We're working to address those dramatic increases so that we're not bringing in more property tax revenue than what we need or than what we expected to bring in. So the idea out there is there's a lot of misconceptions about property taxes. Like one is, why are you people in Columbus raising our property taxes? Well, we're not. Property tax levels are not controlled by the state legislature. They're controlled at the local level. So we might want to address some of those misconceptions as well. And I have some of those written down here to make sure we cover them. You want to tackle those next?
Sure, go right ahead.
Okay, so one misconception about property taxes, let's just get this out there, is that what I just said, that the state legislature is raising our property taxes. Why is the governor doing this, or why are the House of Representatives doing it? We're not doing that. We do not control local property taxes. Those are controlled at the local level. So when you vote for a tax levy, a property tax levy, that's a local vote. Your local ballot is going to increase or renew a levy. So when you vote for a levy, you're voting for that property tax to be collected, okay? Another misconception that we want to address is the property taxes that an individual pays are, they're based on the value of their home. So property taxes are not based on what the governor says or the state legislature passes. Your property tax payments are based on the value of your property, your home, your land, your business, whatever it is. And so as your property value increases, the amount of property tax you pay increases based on the increase of your property value. So, men, who doesn't want their property value to increase? Do you want your do you want the value of your home to
Always.
increase?
Sure.
Yeah. And when do you see the benefit of your increased home value?
When you sell it.
When you sell it.
Exactly. Or if you need a loan.
Or if you need a loan. So we want the value of our home to increase because we're building equity in our home. But what's happened over the last couple of years is we've seen property values just spike. The value of my home has increased 2 or 3 times. I would not pay what they say my house is worth. I wouldn't pay that for my house because it doesn't feel like it's real, right? So I won't see that value until I sell my home.
Right.
And so what we're dealing with is these dramatic spikes in property values that we're now paying that tax on that value. And that's what doesn't feel right. So we're looking for a way to cap that tax so it doesn't increase with that dramatic property value increase. That's what people are seeing. So here's another thing that we need to clarify about property taxes. The county auditor, elected by voters in the county, assesses your property taxes. So at the county level, the county auditor assesses the property value, and then the tax revenue is collected based on the assessment of the. And so our county auditors have been called, by everybody. So they're really doing a lot of work. But that's where the property tax values or property tax revenues lie. It's with the local auditor at the county level. The state doesn't determine the value of your property. It's
Doesn't the state, though, send assessors out for the counties? Don't they send them out to kind of establish what the
the valuation
values
is?
are, yeah.
Yeah, so there's a process but it happens at the local level. Local tax auditors do that. And so, there may be ways we can address how the properties are evaluated. And so some of those ideas are on the table as well. Here's another fact that needs to be established about property taxes. the state doesn't collect property taxes, the county does. So your property taxes are collected at the local level, and those tax dollars stay local. So your property taxes don't fund the state budget. Property taxes fund local government, county, municipality, township, schools.
Okay.
So I
Very
think
good.
it's important for people to understand, your property tax dollars stay local.
I know in the next session of Congress, when you guys all get together again, and everything's going along, Governor DeWine vetoed 67 items out of the original budget bill. I'm sure there's some of those you want to see brought back, and why, so give us an example of what you
so
think should be brought back.
A number of examples, but many of those were property tax reforms. So like I said a while ago, we have 30-plus bills in the legislature right now that have been introduced to address property taxes. Over 30 bills that have not yet been passed. A number of those we put in the budget. So when the budget was passed, we put some tax policy issues in the budget to get this done back in the spring. We wanted to get it done right away, but the governor vetoed, I believe, all of those efforts that we were attempting to make. And so what happened after that was the governor set up this work group to study property taxes. So at the time, we felt like we've already been studying property tax issues for a long time. We don't need another work group to continue studying it. So what is very interesting, what happened, the governor's work group assessed, studied, looked at property taxes again, and came out with a report a few weeks ago. And very interesting, in their report, it was like a mirror of the things we had put in the budget. They were basically saying amen to the things, not completely, but many of the things we had put in the budget. This work group was saying, these are good ideas. And so now we hope to see some of those things be passed through the legislature, when we could have just done these things back in the spring. And so what we're hearing from the constituents in this district and all across the state is, we need to act quickly to address property taxes. We are trying to do that, and many of these things would have been done back in the spring, but they were vetoed by the governor. So we've voted to override one of those, dealing with clarity on what issues are put on the ballot for levies, eliminating some of the terminology so that voters know what this is. So an emergency levy that's been on the ballot for 20 years, well, that's no longer an emergency levy. So you can't use that term. And so we want voters to know what they're voting for, so the issue that we overrode the veto on will help that clarity. There may be some other veto overrides that are done. But yes, there were a few of those issues in the governor's vetoes that we want to see changed.
One of them that I would like to see, I think, changed is the governor, he did a veto for school funding, which would have capped how much the school districts could carry over. Because I know a lot of these districts carry over. I have no problem with people having carryover, but I think when it gets to be 3 or 4 times what you really need for an emergency, I think it's ridiculous. So how's that going to go, do you think?
I don't know if there will be enough votes to override that veto. But yeah, what you're saying is exactly what we did. We put a measure in the budget that says any school district that has, and the amount kept changing, but let's say a school district that has 50, 60, 70, or 100% carryover, meaning last year's budget that they didn't spend is carried over to this year, 100% of that budget carryover, we think is too much. So that measure was vetoed. And in the process of talking about this, I learned a lot. Here in Darke County and Miami County, which is my district, is all of Miami County and southern Darke County. Talking to our school boards here, I really learned that our local school districts are doing a really good job in not carrying over 100 or 150% of their budget, but rather they're being responsible and preparing for the future. They have carryover, but it's because they're going to have to replace the roof or replace the parking lot or the boiler. And so I really saw how our local school districts over here in Western Ohio felt like they were being punished for being good stewards of their funds. And so that made me realize I don't want that to happen to our school districts who have a 60% carryover because they're planning to use those funds. Now, I think what's important to recognize, though, is a school district can take those funds that they're planning to use for the new roof or the new boiler or the new parking lot and put those in a designated fund for that improvement, so it doesn't look like they're just carrying over too many funds. But there are some school districts that have 100+% in carryover. And so we felt like school districts aren't in the business of collecting and hoarding funds. They're not a bank. They're not an investment firm. There are some school districts that are boasting about how much money they're making in interest on the money they're carrying over. And we just feel like that is not right. That interest should be made by the taxpayer who's paid too much in their taxes. That money should go back to the taxpayer so the right person is making that interest.
He also put a restriction on that would have limited local entities' ability to place certain property taxes, including replacement, on the ballot. They overrode the veto, and then the County Budget Commission authority. The governor vetoed the language that would have given county budget commissions to power all this. Seems like there's he wants to keep it in Columbus. That's what it sounds like to me.
So those are two examples of vetoes where after the veto took place, the work group did their work and gave their report, and they said both of those are good ideas. And so those two were just passed last week. Those are the bills that we passed last week, limiting what levies can be put on the ballot and what levies count toward the 20 mil floor, so that that will affect 237 school districts across the state with what property taxes will be paid next year. And the Budget Commission, that was passed in House Bill 309 last week as well, so that it returns control to the county. Now, here's what's interesting. The County Budget Commission already has the authority to stop collection on a levy if they see that that levy is collecting excessive funds. They already have that authority, but not all budget commissions are using that authority. So House Bill 309 that we passed last week makes that authority equal across the state and all the counties so that county budget commissions can do this. So who is your county budget commission? Every county has a budget commission. It is your auditor, your treasurer, and your prosecutor. Those are all three elected office holders, elected by the voters to make up the budget commission. Now, just ask a question, Mike. What government entity have you ever heard of that realizes they've collected too much money in taxes and decides they need to give that money back to the taxpayer? Has that ever happened in the history of the universe?
I'm trying to think. For 12 years, I always had to go. We always went talk to the Budget Commission. I can't remember. It was always a very pleasant conversation, but they always thought we were doing the right thing. So,
yeah, it has happened. It's rare for that to take place. So I was approached by a fire chief. I'll leave him nameless and what county he was from. It wasn't from here, but a local fire chief wanted to have coffee. We met for coffee, and he said that he had approached the county commission in his county. He approached his county commissioners to point out to them that a certain levy or levies were collecting more than enough taxes because of the property value increases. And he suggested to the county commissioners that that unexpected increase in tax revenue be given back to the property owner, the taxpayers. And he explained how the conversation went. It was cordial, but they decided not to do that. But here's a local fire chief who is funded, his department is funded by property taxes, who recognized this levy was collecting too much and that should be returned to the taxpayers. So that is a good example of a local, now he's not elected, but someone who recognizes the importance of this. So I actually have a couple of examples.
well, he's also a property owner too.
And he's a property owner. Yeah, he is paying property taxes. So I have some examples here of this happening. In Butler County, Butler County recently voted to return nearly $50 million in property taxes to property owners. Now, they use a surplus in sales tax revenue to do that, but they recognize that their property owners were paying too much in property tax, and they took action. So the Budget Commission took action to return funds, and I'm not sure how they did that. They probably didn't send a check to everybody, but they probably
Took it off their taxes, probably.
took it off their taxes for the next year, maybe. But that's a good example, just recognizing that Ohio taxpayers are paying too much in property taxes. Another example is Lorain County. The Lorain County Commissioners voted to double the owner-occupied and homestead property tax credits for eligible homeowners, reducing their tax
Wow,
burden.
That's big.
So
Doubling it, yeah, that's
The
big.
budget, local budget commission has the authority to do that. So those are two good examples. Another example took place in Miami County, that's the other part of our district. In Miami County, the Board of Developmental Disabilities recognized that one of their levies was bringing in excessive revenue, more revenue than they had asked for. And so for 1 year, they stopped collection on that levy.
Wow.
Now, it will return in the following year, but I thought that's a good example of a board and director recognizing we didn't ask for this much in the levy, we're getting more than we asked for, the voters didn't vote for that, so let's return that to the voters by not collecting it. I'm sure there are other good examples across the state. There might be some examples right here in Dark County that I don't know about, but the Budget Commission has that authority already, and so House Bill 309 that we passed last week was a measure to make sure that authority is equal in all the counties across the state,
Good.
so that local elected officials who are accountable to their constituents can take action to address increased property taxes.
There's a lot of talk right now about Republicans, Democrats, Independents, they're all not getting along. But how's it going over in Columbus?
Well,
You guys
we
all get along pretty
Get
well?
along perfectly. I've met no enemies. No, of course, we don't see things the same way. Even within the Republican Party,
No.
we don't see everything the same way. And so I love how Congressman Warren Davidson says, like every time I hear him talk, he talks about how politics is a team sport. It's a team effort. And so within the Republican caucus, when we don't see things the same way, because not every district is the same, not every county is the same, we have to listen to each other. We have to listen to what is important for this representative's district, county, townships that are different from mine. I have different priorities. We have different values, maybe, in some ways. And so that's one of the reasons why nothing gets done quickly, because there really a lot of listening has to take place to make sure that the priority I have doesn't create unexpected consequences for another district somewhere else. So we have to make sure that we're listening well, and often that hasn't happened thoroughly enough, so we'll pass a law that has an unintended consequence. One of these things just happened with the transportation, but I'm on the transportation committee. We passed the transportation budget that had some changes in driver's licenses, which affected Wright-Patt Air Force Base, because they bring in people from other countries to do training, and those people have to drive while they're here for a year in America. And we didn't realize that what we passed in the transportation budget would prevent those foreigners from getting driver's licenses while they're here for a year. So we had to recognize that, own it, and go back and fix that. And so often it's recognizing, we did something that we didn't realize was going to affect someone that we care about. So we have to own it and go fix that. So it takes some humility. That's one of the things that you might not recognize in all politicians is humility. It's possible that politicians can talk so much, like I've been talking so much, that humility doesn't appear to be there. And I think we need to remember that. This is a servant role. If we get something wrong, or if we're not listening to the right people, we need to start listening to the right people.
Well, I think you can ask Gaylen or anybody, I was always very humble.
Yeah, right.
Mike, that comes
And
through
very, and very
clearly.
easy to get along with. Jonathan, we're getting ready to wrap up here. One final question. I know you enjoy doing this, but how long do you want to do it? Have you thought about
Well,
how you want to end your career?
Well, I talk to my wife about this often, and some other people ask me this. And my answer, in part, is I'm doing what God has put in front of me to do today. I have a job to do today, and I want to do that. But no matter how long I want to do this, I only get 8 years. We have term limits in Ohio,
Yep.
so as a state representative, the terms are for 2 years, and you only get 4 terms. So you get 8 years, and then you're done. So it doesn't matter how long I want to do it, 8 years is it. But really, I want to do today what's in front of me to do today. I want to do that well without thinking about, well, what am I going to do after 8 years? Am I going to run for another office? Am I going to run for the Senate?
Exactly, yeah.
You know, I really don't think about that. I think about what I need to do today. And actually, my hands are full with what I have to do right now. So I'm going to worry about today.
Good.
Because the good book says tomorrow has enough troubles for itself.
Yeah.
Let's don't think about that. Let's think about doing right today.
Well, Jonathan, thank you for coming in. This has been very informative. Appreciate it. I think you guys are doing a real good job over in Columbus, and you're always welcome back anytime. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you,
Gaylen?
Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks for
Gaylen.
coming in.
There you have it,
Appreciate it.
folks. Another session of the Roundtable with Representative Johnathan Newman. Stay tuned next time when we don't know who it'll be, but there'll be somebody. Talk to you all later. Bye.